All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Short Works finale at the 2022 Montana Book Festival. Thank you all so much for being here. This afternoon, we're going to hear 4 incredibly talented poets. Poets? Is everybody a poet? Right? Or are they writers too? Writers. Writers of different forms. So without further ado, I think we'll kick things off with J.P. Gassett. Welcome.
That's Grasser with an R.
Awesome.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. There's like some seats. We walk around. It's called autotomy, which comes from the Greek. Like autotomy, the tomos means like severance. So it's self-severance. Autotomy. If their tails really did grow back, we never saw. Having by then returned the skinks and race runners to their burrows in wind-furrowed dunes. This was Nebraska, summertime, a whole world removed from this less obvious one. Field pivots orbiting nothing, clouds of gnats coalescing into gaseous planets. Hell, even the radio was somehow plainer out there. At the top of the hour, a gruff voice rattled through futures and the price per bushel of soybeans, a voice perfectly at ease with the sort of dull machinery that swallows people whole. What I meant to prove was a mind full of purpose and a head for precision. So I caught the lizards and cut their tails off with a hacksaw, while my cousins shrieked with glee. I'd read Lear by then, which was part of the problem. Part of myself I was trying to lop off for good. That flamboyant precocity, that taste for beauty in all its irrevocable ache and complexity. As flies to wanton boys. Would you believe I thought of the line as I held a severed tail up to the light, inspecting the scales overlay, that impossible geometry? What matter if you don't? That's the truth. Together, sometimes we chased the girls with bloody limp tails, but when I was alone, I sat by the bank and held sun-hot stones to my chest and prayed to the god of lucid skies, who put calligraphy on the face of the water, and below it, light that quakes and warps in ribbons, who cast glittering archipelagos across the marble floors of commerce, who mold the viscous light of winter afternoons, who even honed the sliver of light that cut my grandmother in half, her last morning. Her gray tongue flicked at the ice chips, and her mouth opened and closed by reflex, and I will never forget it. What I wanted was to be unformed, to be stripped naked and devolve back to that time before my parts made me unwhole, before death was withstood, let alone taken lying down. Some days I walked around all afternoon with a cleft tail in my pocket, calling it talisman, calling it clever fiction, in the self-same breath. I knew myself a coward, but I thought self-severance was a way of being brave and smart at once, another genius trick of evolution. Turns out they mostly die, and if they are made whole again, their tails grow back discolored, stubby, and dull, so they're cast out anyway. Imbrication of days, I may many times have been an engine of cruelty, but let them never say I was no student of the light. I was. I apprenticed myself to the light and saw it break on everything. How long is this to go? Like 12 minutes?
Sure.
Cool.
Hour.
Great. Hour? All right. This is called brevity. I read this to Mark in a picnic blanket in Vermont like 2 weeks ago. And then I edited it more, so it's sort of new brevity. It was afternoon by the middle of morning. We stripped to our whitey-tighties. Wavelets teased the shore. Sunlight hung suspended from the brambles' hollow thorns. Algae gobbed his chest, changed him into a variegated thing apart from all reason and reasonableness. No more or less human than the cattails laid prone on the bank before the altar of wind. We never touched. I moved away. I don't dream anymore, not really. Not of my dead brood, bobwhite quail I mothered beneath heat lamps that long, bitter spring. Not of the lullabies I cooed them when no one was around. All gone in a week. In a week, all gone, but for the few feathers heaped on the fence like anachronistic snow. Not of the boy I saw shot in a drive-by, in a blizzard in Baltimore. Nor of the breath that formed a small cloud above his face, then resolved into the sky. No, it's that August afternoon that rises from whatever spectral depths dreams rise. Again, waves pulse and pulsate at the shore. Our splashing erects a frantic arch, the briefest of doorways, defined by droplets and the naked summer light. I don't dare enter, not even in the inscapes of sleep, which is why I must imagine him out of time, inhabiting nowhere, and so uncaught in the days, minutes, hours, years that turn the crank of the winnowing machine. Though last I heard, he's alive and well, and drawing pay, taking stock with a laser gun in Kansas. That's very nice. You'll have to clap every time. It'll be over soon. So my work tends to, I don't know, it finds itself like the intersections of queer ecology, and I'm very interested in the pastoral, which I guess sort of in place. It's probably ubiquitous around here. But I've been thinking a lot about global warming. And this is called Plainsong. Hotter days than ever curl the paint from the barn's broadside, if not the same loafing shed where our ladders and step ladders fold in on themselves. But even now, it's endless rolling distance, that familiar wavering where road crosses road, which way? Out of signal with no sign to lead on, but the pastures, they do end. So enough. Enough with this kingdom of pure loneliness, wherein certain grace certainly lies. Enough wielding fields of the seeming particular. Sandberg bluegrass, American slewgrass, nutsedge, mullein, needle and thread. For not a single word will contour these heat-blocked flatlands. See, a cloud is by nature a deliberation. A decade looking for you in the ink blots, spreading a leopard frog's back, is what I spent. Then lo and behold, out of the blue arrives a text with plenty to glean on cruciform structures and plant DNA, which neared the feeling, I guess. I guess it did. But to think of what I most wanted and what I loved most swept to one side, and to consider you neck deep in switchgrass and strangletop makes nothing happen at all. To look at it now, you'd never guess. But 2 horses lived behind this old house, one Grula and one Tobiano, who made a kind of plain music at dusk, swishing flies from each other's eyes and wickering after the good, sweet hay, for whom dust was dirt, and what dies doesn't. just like a couple more for me. I don't know, I think there's like and oftentimes we sort of think of ecology as being like circumscribed to the natural spaces, but obviously like built environments are also ecological spaces. And I think like state violence is also part of ecology in a way now. I mean, political spheres like literally are telling us where our water can go and who dies and when and stuff like that. I don't know, I think this is, well, it's very sad sort of, but there's reason joy. This is called Work Song. We moved here recently from Salt Lake, and I worked on an organic farm there with like sort of quite a lot of different types of people. Work Song. I was green. I'd simply never seen a felon sing falsetto. But when Ritchie took an earbud and 2 fingers gingerly and planted the kernel in his ear, like a virgin, scaled the same air trumpet vines climbed, and smooth criminal, settled like dust over the endless rock-bound, dusty ground, where mornings starlings trilled if Ritchie wasn't, until noon, when heat bloomed from our ripe pits. When heat bloomed from our ripe pits and budded at our hat bands and waistbands. As rumor had it, one night he got good and lit, come home and strangled his wife. He'd done 8 inside, got out early on good behavior. Mostly it was garlic we grew, and all day we docked escapes that screwed up the thankless heavens with curved blades. No one else ever seemed to mind working side by side a murderer with a knife. The job paid shit, but I'd taken it for the experience. See, I had this bright idea I'd sow myself with seeds of work and cultivate a crop of novel words for the poems I'd write. I had this precious, wrong belief I could synthesize light and water into life and song. But I think really I wanted to own the land, the way naming a thing gives a certain power over it. I was so green. I griped and groused. Ritchie lived in a halfway house, and people said he'd done 3 months in the hole, spent 3 months in soundless, solitary darkness. But even when the red dust coated our throats and our snot ran mud, Ritchie would just sing and sing and sing. Then one day he didn't show. A week passed, then 2. The cops came to see if we'd seen him, said twice now he'd skipped out on his PO. Then at last he turned up dead, hanging in a warehouse. How could I have helped but think that since darkness was what the state subjected him to, the dark was all he knew. It was all ages ago. But sometimes, digging in my garden here at home, I think how many things I wish I didn't know. Like the long song a shovel sings when it strikes solid stone. How it rings and rings and rings, and then the silence grows. I think I'll stop there.
JP Grasser, everybody. Up next, please welcome Kat Hamilton.
Found through doing Word Dog that sitting is really nice for reading poetry. This first one is called The Hive. It's kind of funny how incessantly incestuous small towns can be. From one I was raised in to one I've been found in. feeling like a stranger, free to perform my favorite habits. Dancing alone, singing in the streets. Seeing this web that's been woven and adding my own strands. Dancing alone and skipping in the streets, knowing one of you will inevitably see me. Enjoying this new feeling of being free. My cheeks hurt these days, smiling from my own odd tendencies, because I finally see all these busy, bumbling bees, and they see me. This next one's called Small Town Leavings. To spin, to spin, to spin, and tie knots and complicate strings. To fray ends and weave in new pieces, to keep on growing, to keep on weaving. To burn pieces that roam to dead ends, to take fresh fibers stripped from my flesh with dry knuckles that crack from the work. That stream blood onto the phrase, the stray wasp. To dye it with my flesh, my breath, my words. To stretch it taut with the tension of my ribs on a heavy inhale. If I were to take a needle and hand it off, would you take the string and weave something beautiful? Or would you wrap the thread around my ribs one by one and pull it taut to snap them, collapse them in, and watch me struggle to breathe? Catch me like a rabbit, watch me kick, thump my heels into the ground, gnash my buck teeth, bite my tongue, howl, grunt, dig until my knuckles bleed. Bleeding knuckles, why are my fists clenched so tight? Why can I feel the readiness for a fight down my spine, into my legs, into clenched toes? The intoxicating idea to let my tongue flow red like my blood, to keep it flowing like when I clench my fists. Shaky hands, no matter how hard they tremble, have never burst my skin, have never made me bleed bright red, have never helped me stay sober, have never done more than press crescent moons into my palms. All bleeding comes by accident, a nervous tick, dry hands, a scrape, but every scab picked is purposeful. Every slow pool, slow drop is something stared at, like it's a crystal ball. That it holds secrets, can tell me something I already know. Some secret hiding within me, something maybe I created. Maybe it has been there since birth. Maybe it is a figment, just an idea. Dark red like my veins, bright red like my words. I would get my voice immortalized in red like the lipstick she wore when she spit my name from her mouth. Catherine, what a cursed and forgotten thing, uttered only to use you, uttered only to use me, to please me. Oh, Catherine, will you live another year as a coward? Your time is running out. And I got two more for you. This one's called Forged Reflections. The year that has passed deemed best yet. I cut off my head, bled dry until I didn't see myself. It came hot, quick, manic destruction. It has been a slow tearing, a peeling of a dirty hangnail, rebuilding of flesh, forgetting the skeleton. Tearing apart the uncured mass I tried to build with, breaking bones again, mortar and pestle until it is all just dust. Sculpting into something new has been a painful experience filled with old habits bursting at their new seams. I don't know who's in the mirror. I hate a part of them because I don't recognize them. I don't know who's in the mirror. It's terrifying because they don't break eye contact. I don't know who's in the mirror. It's thrilling because they could be anyone. This is last one. I don't have a title for this one. It's pure love in long drives that feel easy. In the synchronized act of our bodies being pulled forward in the act of shifting gears. In laying in sun-kissed grass that we water with care. It's pure love in our laughter, heads back, with all the people I've shown my yellow teeth and those that share the stains. Laughing until I can't breathe, crying until the laughter stops, swallowing so much air that our stomachs burst and we air it out, all out cruising down the highway with our windows down. It's pure love and endlessly ambling and strolling and rolling hills in small silences we've shared for years.
Martleton, everybody. Up next, please welcome Josh Martleton. Martleton? Martleton.
This is a bit of a long piece. Unfortunately, it can't be broken up, so I'm going to try to read fast so that we have time to get to Gil. To all the girls I thought I loved, an epistolary essay on the love we feel before we know our own hearts. For the select few individuals that have burrowed their way, for better or for worse, into my heart and memory, these letters, these tokens of love once had, are for you, for me, and for the sake of unforgettable and misguided love. To my dearest Bella J, I don't remember the name of that little plastic Appaloosa, the one with the crooked leg that could never stand up properly, the one I loved so dearly when we were kids. I do, however, remember how elated I was when you finally let me take it home. Wildly, I ran around that little old house near the University of Denver, making a racket and nearly knocking the African tribal masks off the wall, prompting your mild-mannered father to scold me in his kind teacherly fashion. God bless Todd, we put him through a lot. I loved that little horse more than you probably ever knew. He was different, just like I was, struggling to stand on his own, never feeling stable. I wonder if after all these years, in whatever box he has been slumbering in, if he ever learned to stand on his own, his legs warping with time and pressure. Your mom still touts that you changed my diapers when we were little, and I guess when she wasn't running the Denver lingerie market, she probably did clean up some of my shit. Growing up together, our parents saw what friendship we shared, but that kind of love isn't always static. After years of playing with our little plastic horses and watching Animaniacs in the basement of your parents' cabin in Buena Vista, my love for you surpassed any level appropriate to call platonic. In the most unexpected moments, a sister started to emerge, welling up in every crevice of my young heart. New Year's, champagne, and Studio Ghibli movies in your basement, rodeo clown camp and random queer TikToks, the time you confessed you might be bisexual during one of our yearly manicure life updates. These are the moments that took hold of the affection I once felt for you and transformed it into the love of a sister above all else. Bella, thank you for loving me unconditionally and for the permanent reminder of our shared origin and growth tattooed upon my skin. I think our mothers, sisters in their own right, secretly wished we would marry to share our lives together forever. In a way, we might fulfill their wishes as pseudo-siblings. Until our next nail appointment, I love you, Josh. To my elementary everything, Cleo, one of the earliest memories is of you. We were sitting outside of Bromwell Elementary School on a softly lit morning, waiting to be led into the doors of kindergarten. You can lean on me if you want, I offered, hoping you, if only for a moment, would place your head of wavy brown hair on my shoulder. You leaned on me and all seemed right in the world. The love of my little life was leaning on me, and in that moment nothing could ruin it. Or so I thought. Then the bell rang and our teacher, Miss Ford, clicked her way across the gray pavement in her infamous high heels, and quickly you sat up. The pressure of your head on my shoulder lingered there in the absence of you, and we wandered into our kindergarten classroom to start our normal curriculum of shapes and colors and all that our little minds and little hearts could grasp. My kindergarten love turned to first grade infatuation and later into second grade obsession. You were my elementary everything. You were my world, and in temperamental scrawls I tried to tell you. My heart beat solely for you, and I was determined to let you know how loved you were. I wonder if that love note, my penmanship nearly undecipherable, is still somewhere, hidden in the recesses of your mom's basement, in a box of macaroni art, crayon scribbles, and fading memories. You gave me my first taste of what it feels like to have true passion for someone other than myself. Sometimes when the sun warms my skin in just the right way, like it did on that sun-bathed morning outside of our kindergarten classroom, I remember your tender, freckled face and I smile. Warm regards, Josh. To whomever Tyler may be today, a footnote on the name Tyler. Tyler is a trans man who was female presenting in the events of this letter, but out of respect for him, I will be using only his chosen male identifying name. Do you remember when we got scolded for holding hands in second grade? Miss Malone did not think it was appropriate, but I was determined because I loved you. even though you bullied me on the playground. I had a crush on you for years, and I was quite unabashed about it. In 5th grade, I asked you to be my girlfriend. In retrospect, I don't think you ever wanted to say yes, but you did to be nice, or maybe, as I later convinced myself, you had some other nefarious motivation. On our first date, hiking just outside of Golden, Colorado with your family, the sun was warm on my skin, and I held your hand when your mom wasn't looking. I still love that memory, even if I don't love the memory of you. You used me to make Kevin Parker jealous, or at least that was my experience. He threw rocks at me during recess, and you stood by and reveled in the exhibition. I loved you with all of my little 5th grade heart, and you didn't even have the love in yours to break up with me yourself. You got together with him a week after, but even now, I still remember the feeling of your hand in mine. It was so new to me, the feeling of something I thought was so tender and kind entwined in mine. I lament that I never really got the closure I wanted all those years ago, but recently I found your new Instagram, and any grievance that still chilled my heart melted away. Your little button nose is still the one that I fell in love with on the playground, but I have never seen your smile hold such radiance as it does now that you have explored and embraced the man you were always meant to be. I hope to talk again, not about Kevin or how I was hurt back in elementary school, but about what has become of each other since then. Neither of us knew who we were in those days. Maybe one day our sweet little rats can have a play date and we can meet again with our new truths worn upon our sleeves. Fondly, Josh. To Jojo. When we met all those years ago, much of the world saw me for what I was before I ever could. When I moved to the new house, switching schools and friends, I searched for someone to call my own. Luckily, I found you, conveniently living kitty corner to our new house. We quickly became friends, and maybe at some point, a part of me did love you, as lovers might, when I could still see myself as the happy husband of a beautiful wife. Those days were long ago, and sometimes I long to go back to them, not because I am unhappy with my life, but because in those days with you by my side, playing make-believe in the yard and Viva Pinata on the Xbox, tossing the ball with Loki and making cinnamon toast in secret, I was able to be whatever I wanted to be. I could explore the world in a way that was limited only by our imagination. When we would play make-believe, you always ragged on me for my choice of superpower. Not fair. Shape-shifting lets you do everything. What neither of us knew at the time was that I was searching to be out of my own skin, covered up with sweatshirts too big for my own good, the sleeve cuffs chewed into rags, Snoopy separated from the girl I thought would be my forever love, and the friends I felt were impossible to replace, with a secret I myself didn't know I was keeping. I wanted to escape. To fly the skies as an eagle, swim the seas as a whale, or run the vast plains of our imagination with the vigor of a cheetah, to be anything other than myself. I remember our games fondly, and I miss them. Natalie, you allowed me to shapeshift in play so that I could start to love myself as much as I loved you. As time passed and my shape-shifting started to take root in reality, I learned that my love for you was greater than any lover's heart could bear. You loved me enough to show me I could be whatever I wanted to be, not just what others expected. I wish we talked like we used to, but maybe one day we can play Viva Pinata again, and this time I won't only spawn worm pinatas. Now that I consider my obsession with those little worm pinatas, maybe that was some Freudian indication of who I would eventually become. Telling, I guess. Forever and always, Josh. To Theo. Ew, gross. A footnote on the name Theo. Theo is a trans man who was female presenting in the early events of this letter, but out of respect for him, I will only be using his chosen male identifying name. You called me dude on the playground, and I was not okay with that. Even in elementary school, I was no dude. Dudes were gross and immature. Your brother was a dude. Kevin Parker was a dude. I, however, was not. In 2nd grade, I knew I didn't want to be like the other guys, and no one was really convinced I ever would be. Soon after we met, you left to head off to middle school, and our friendship was gone as soon as it appeared. I lament that we did not reconnect until high school, when our love, whatever it was, really sprung to life. Greeting you in the echoing hallways of the Fine Arts building with "ew, gross," and your retorts of "ew, gay," were like tiny kisses on the cheeks, reminders that we loved each other in one way or another. We had an odd relationship, you and I, apart from our odd greetings, that is. When I met your ex-partner, Max, he was a straight hockey boy, totally my type. We were Spanish buddies, and I really had hoped would become more novios, perhaps. But I wasn't right for him. You were what he needed, and I started to resent you for it. High school trudged along, and the jealousy I felt for your relationship with Max eventually turned to admiration, and love returned between us. I thought little of what happened with Max and I until the day you told me I was to thank for your relationship. I will never forget the Tinder message you sent me claiming that Max started exploring his sexuality due to my flirtations in Senor Blitz's Spanish 3 class. For many years, I envied how you two were able to maintain not only a long distance, but an open relationship. It's ironic, really. Had I not been such a flirt, I'd have far less to envy. But that is the past, and I would really change nothing. In all honesty, I came to see you and Max as much of the same. And looking back, the love I had for you only grew when you and Max found love in each other's arms. Together, you and Max showed me that it is better to love honestly and without facades, even in the face of cool high school eyes. Now, when we stumble upon each other on Grindr, our messages are filled with a friendly sort of love. Seeing your profile picture pop up on occasion brings me undefinable joy. We met when neither of us knew ourselves, grew up not knowing each other, and reconnected by awkward happenstance. We belong to the world of the obscurity of the dating app. Keep an eye out for my Grindr profile. Love, Josh. To my beloved Charlie, a footnote on the name Charlie. Charlie is a non-binary individual who is female presenting for most of our young lives, but out of respect for them, I will only be using their chosen name. I started loving you the day we got sat next to each other in Miss Kellogg's 4th grade class. She told you to put your art supplies, each already carefully labeled with your name, in with the community class set. You were livid. Even a lifetime later, I'm not sure you ever let that grudge go. I like to believe you haven't. It remains one of my fondest memories that way. We entered high school. When we entered high school, we went our separate ways. You into the art hall and I into the band room. We went from best friends to estranged acquaintances. The love that we once shared, gone. I'm still not sure what I did to push you away, but eventually I would like to have that conversation again. And this time, unlike back then, I will listen. Thankfully, as the years of high school ticked on, we were able to find ourselves more fully. Theater meant we could be friends again. Eventually, our friendship redeveloped and we were able to talk like we used to. We talked of love again. By coincidence, we both apparently had harbored secret feelings for each other in early middle school, before we both realized we were queers. Had we known at the time, we could have been middle school lovers, but instead you dated Robbie, an unfortunate time for all involved. I think at that point I needed you as a friend and confidant. After all, you were one of the first people I came out to. When you came out as trans during our senior year musical, you told me something that shocked me. As you know, my family talks about me having prophetic dreams, and when you reminded me that I had once dreamt about you being trans, it came a little too real. That morning of our sophomore year, when I texted you about my dream, I never could have imagined that you had started considering your own gender identity. Scared, thinking people could somehow see it like a target on your back, you must have panicked, and I'm so sorry for ever putting you through that. Now, years after coming out to the world and 2 years more since the dream ever happened, I like to believe our hearts were just tethered somehow. Some cosmic connection that let me glimpse your heart being tormented by itself. I am so proud of who we have become. No longer attempting to play the role society cast us for, we have become so beautiful. Thank you for all the times you called me on my bullshit over the years and for dealing with the constant stream of peculiar TikToks I send you. They're how I say, I love you, Josh. What time is it? 2:10. Great. To Emily Ann Gerber Wilkins. The girls in the flute section are pretty cute. That was my brother's way of planting a seed in my head that you were the end-all be-all middle school crush. Childish as it was, it worked. My conniving older brother put the thought in my head that I, assumed to come out queer, should foster an undying love for one of his best buddy's sisters. These feelings grew and grew until I decided to make a move and ask you to freshman year homecoming. With a section of Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 in your band locker, maybe we both should have known that I was gayer than I was letting on. Although homecoming was fucking awkward, that night helped me realize that you were not meant to be my lover, but one of my best friends. One day, we will travel the world together as our brothers have and taste ramen of worldly excellence, unlike the hole-in-the-wall we frequent back home. We will see the world and experience each other in a way that we have never been able to before, as platonic lovers. I am still spiteful that you deprived me of a slow dance at homecoming. I wanted to live out the picturesque movie moment I always saw in those high school rom-coms, but you killed that dream. In all seriousness, however, now that I have been able to find my truth, I see you as the incredible woman that you are, not just that transplant infatuation that my brother so graciously gifted me. I should thank him. We might never have become friends without him. Mom and I still joke about us getting married, and if things turn topsy-turvy, you always have your gay best friend to fall back on to say I do. Thank you for all the years of love, and one day, at your wedding, or our high school reunion, or some moonlit wine night, I will get that slow dance that I deserve. Forever your GPF, Josh. To Georgia. Do you remember, when we, counted how many, times Olivia Stacks, said, in, Miss McInerney's class sophomore year? I think the record was 145 in one class period. As exhausting as it was, it made us start holding each other accountable. I hated looking over to you after speaking and seeing your snide face with the number of likes held up on your hand. I don't know that I ever told you that I loved you, but in those moments with a goofy smile on your face and your fingers held up discreetly in mock disapproval, I started to love you in a way that was more than just platonic. That was a long time ago, and I do still love you as a gay man loves one of his girlfriends, but for a while, you were part of the acclaimed 13. What is that? I explained it once long ago. The 13 is the small percentage of a bisexual identity that I used to cling to. An arbitrary number with no mathematical or realistic legitimacy, but purely a remnant of a show I love, Warehouse 13. I convinced myself I was 13% straight. Looking back, I see that I was afraid of being alone, in a school, in a world that felt devoid. There was little light for me as a gay man, but with that 13%, I still had hope for something wonderful, true love. You were the last girl I ever loved as part of the 13. I concealed the affection I had for you because, one, I didn't think you would ever love me back, and two, I didn't know if it was even real. Sunbathing by the side of the pool years after those moments in English class, discreetly sipping that huge thing of whiskey and Coke from my big teal Yeti, talking about Nick Lucasio and all the attractive boys at the pool, we whittled away the summer day in peace. In this break from the stress of school and work and the looming presence of your father's recent infidelity, we soaked up every ounce of warmth our skin could take. Your beautiful body, tanned and toned, sent fun thoughts through my mind. Beautiful. To a mind which had started to come to terms with not loving women physically, you were an anomaly, and these feelings confused me. How could I love you like that when I was so gay? The truth is, the women in the 13, yourself included, were not tokens of a rare romantic love, but of love that challenged something. As one of the most intelligent, talented, and confident women that I have ever met, that is what attracted me to you. I did not want to be with you. I simply wanted to be you. I wanted the men, the grades, the accomplishments that seemed to come so easily to you. I've started to hash out these differences now that I know myself better, and now the 13 don't exist, other than as legacies of what once was. They, you, will always be a part of me and hold a sacred place in my heart. Forever yours, Josh. To all the girls I thought I loved, a footnote on the word girls. Out of respect for those individuals that have come out as trans and non-binary, I would like to acknowledge the flaws in this label and every reference prior. By no means is this gendered term an insinuation to delegitimize their identity. You have become best friends, cis, sisters, trans, brothers, non-binary, siblings, inspirations, or estranged fond memories. Whichever the case, you taught me to love unconditionally. You taught me who I am and what eventually I want to be. I clung to you in need of being a little more normal. You were my hope to one day have a family, to be a father, to be loved as the movies always showed us. I anchored myself in a reality that was not honest out of a fear that I would never have my own happy ending. With all of you, one day, I want to sit down over a glass of wine and talk of self, of finding, and of love. Lovingly yours, Josh. Thank you.
Josh, everybody. All right. Before our last reading, I'd just like to say thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all the volunteers and the organizers who make this event happen. And without further ado, Gillian Ritchie.
I'm a night owl, so good morning. Thank you all for being here. I knew there was someone in the crowd that would feel it. I want to just thank everyone who has been part of the Short Works series. I don't know if you guys have made it to any other Montana Book Festival events, but they've been reading on a lot of them, and this is a new thing that we did this year that Sam threw together, so really excited to be a part of it. I will read a few poems for you. I don't have a lot, but I think I make up for it in density of content. Ghosts teem the night, in wind chimes and the heaving of trains. I am safe, but my shelter has cracks, and the storm blows through them and howls, whipping through the Hellgate Canyon, then rocks and precipices on high. They cry into me, like the way wild mushrooms sometimes find me more than I find them. Thread, thread, from safety I see the instability which racks us. I sat down to edit these poems this morning. I've been volunteering a lot for Montana Book Fest, and I have a very deep personal human flaw, which is that I can't title my poetry. But instead of editing today, I was able to come up with a title. So all of these are titled Effigy. Ravenous maw consume, my heartbeat it beats out of my chest when you touch it. I do not speak of Joseph, he speaks out of my eyes. Out of silence lower each eyelash sitting cross-legged. The story meant to tell of growth, raised on a pedestal, voices tell of elevation, still to come lower. The wrist to raise up, always to dip in. I remove myself from myself. Attachments like dandelion roots reach from my soul to a cigarette. It is lodged in and I can't dig it out as much as a Catholic would like I would surely be killing myself by digging out roots. We fall like chopsticks, or the game of wayward chance, pick up sticks, pieces laying across pieces below other pieces, as if to make fun of the idea that anyone could ever fit together like Mary Poppins and breadcrumbs. I am, and you are, and we are, beautifully messy, and not at all like an equation or a television accident. My anger and ambition stand alone, separate dewdrops on the brow of my autonomy. Maybe I never make it up onto a stage and hold the audience like a candle flame. Maybe I never become whole. Maybe I never achieve the consistent embrace of a partnership. Maybe I never fully understand anything. Maybe I never paint a picture worth selling. Maybe I never find the fulcrum of my anger. Maybe I don't leave a footprint on the world. Maybe my blue is the blue of the ages, but not of you. Maybe I never leave in a way that's meaningful. Maybe I always remain. The rain washes over and under my sense of the rain. Continuous, impoverished, kneeling, weeping. There is no reflection without the rain. The medicine is water, sometimes flowing. Through fingers, heavy yet light. The world in the tears of one person, myself in my beer, you through a waterfall, leaving and coming, lessons in every movement, swooning in a way that has you become the world. Seize the revolution. Internalize the way the cat curves her back to welcome energy. Shoulders perched, she settles herself in a way that honors the pull of distinguished magnets. Faulty in no way but in the analysis of them, and perhaps the diagnosis of having spent a long time a certain way. Breaking molds, physically, emotionally, relationally, verbally, then breaking the mold of breaking the mold. The farther we go down the rabbit hole, the more we leave society behind.
Thank you all so much. That's it for this portion. Have a great day and go listen to some other great readings.